Let's go live now to Mexico and speak to Daniel Lieberson. He's a businessman. He's in Mexico City, and also Vanessa Buendia, who lives and works in the south of Mexico City. Vanessa, let's start with you. Can you just describe what happened when the earthquake hit where you were?
Yeah, well, thank you. Actually, I was just taking a shower when I was coming out. My roommate, I just heard her yell, earthquake. So I could start, I saw the chandelier in my room just swinging from side to side. So I grabbed a towel and ran out. And then I remembered that I left my phone. And since my parents live outside the city, well, I needed to reach them. So I went back in and I could hear the furniture, toppling and the ceiling cracking and everything. So it was kind of foolish of me to do that, but well, I got out safely, and well, the most shocking thing was that still outside, you could see the house moving, and you could see the floor underneath you actually jumping up and down.
It's frightening. I mean, what a frightening experience. And then presumably if the floor's moving like that, it's difficult to run.
Yes, it's very difficult actually because you get a little bit, lightheaded. So you're trying to get outside as quickly as you can, but at the same time, I mean, you can't because just physically, it's very difficult.
Daniel, if we can come to you, and obviously we can see the night time in Mexico City at the moment, which will of course make it more difficult for the rescuers who are attempting to do things. I mean, what was your experience, and what's the city like at the moment?
Thank you very much. I think it's a very similar situation. I was on the 26th floor of the Hilton Hotel, which is the second highest building in Mexico City, and it was impossible to stand up. Glass was breaking, furniture falling over. You basically had to crawl out. Right now, as you said, it's nighttime. The officials, the police have told us to stay off the streets. There's only ambulances, fire engines, and some volunteer trucks going by because there's people trapped in the rubble. And there's a lot of looting going on, we've been told. Some of the stores have been damaged, the doors and the windows, and people are taking advantage and entering the store, so they've asked us to stay off the streets. But it's been pretty horrific. As you know, Mexico City was built on a lake bed, so we really feel the 7.1, it feels a lot stronger. I used to live in Chile and in Africa, in Kenya, near the Rift Valley, and this was much stronger, much, much stronger.
And I mean, it's clear that you are very high up in the hotel that you're staying in at the moment. Were you in that room when it happened?
I'm in the 25th floor. I was on the 26th at that time in a business meeting, and everyone knew it was an earthquake, but there was no way to get out. We couldn't go down the stairs until later. When we went down the stairs, the water mains had broke, the plumbing, and there was a lot of water flowing down the stairwells. And there was a woman that had to be carried out. She was in a wheelchair, and she was carried down about 20 flights of stairs. So it was a rather frightening time. A lot of people are sleeping in the lobby of the hotel now because they're afraid that there's going to be some aftershocks.
It sounds frightening what you're both describing. I wonder, Daniel, if we start with you and then Vanessa, what goes through your mind apart from get out?
I think what goes through your mind is, oh my God, I hope this doesn't go on for very long. And I had the experience in Africa that it would start small and get bigger. So you just don't know how long it's going to be. I always think about a hurricane. A hurricane tells you it's coming in a few days. An earthquake, you just never know when and how long and how strong. I think that was the big thing. It's the fear of the unknown.
Vanessa?
Yeah, well, for me, it's very rare for, where I live that you can actually feel earthquakes. So just feeling it was quite alarming because I started thinking the first thing was my family and my friends. Within minutes, I started getting videos and photos through my WhatsApp about, what was happening in the city. So that was really the stressing because it took me about between 60 and 90 minutes to get a hold of my parents and most of my friends. I mean, so that was my main worry. What happened? How can I help? If we actually tried to leave the house, traffic was congested and it was horrible. And we went to a shop and people were just, buying everything they could. So that was distressing, not being able to speak to people and just not knowing how to help.
And what, Vanessa, is the alert system like?
Well, we do have an alert system that you can download. It's an app. So it generally goes off about 30 to 40 seconds before the actual earthquake hits, but today the epicenter was just about 50 to 70 kilometers from the city. So we had actually no time.
I mean, you're both, sorry, you're both talking in terms of the fact that the earthquakes are a relatively common occurrence in Mexico. We know that there was the one a couple of weeks ago, and yet this one seems to have done more damage and sadly caused more death than previous ones recently.
Yes, that's mostly because A, the epicenter was much closer to the city, for starters, and secondly, the last earthquake was much more oscillatory, which means that things moved from side to side. This occasion, things moved from side to side, and also they were jumping up and down. So that's what made the damage much worse.
Daniel, you talked about the curfew in place. How would you characterize the response so far? You know, Mexico is, well, we still class it as a developing country, but it's now a richer nation than it was in the past. It's got resources. Do you think it's got what it needs to cope?
I think it does. I mean, as you mentioned in your program, today there was a simulation because in 1985, 32 years ago, there was a big earthquake in Mexico City. So ironically, a lot of people were trained and in place. We saw a lot of people out there immediately. They took us across from the hotel to the park. They brought water to people. They were helping the people who had fallen down, people with broken arms and things like that. I think Mexico did a really good job. The only thing I would say is that a lot of buildings collapsed, and I still wonder if a lot of those buildings truly meet the earthquake code that's required in Mexico, or if they're just so old and they've gone through so many earthquakes that it just accumulated, and that caused the downfall of those buildings.
Daniel, it is the middle of the night where you are, obviously. I just wonder, I mean, the city behind you, perhaps you can show us a little bit of it. Does it, is it less busy than it normally would be?
Absolutely. There are almost no cars, and this is one of the biggest cities in the world in terms of population. And they're just, like I said, ambulances, fire engines, a few police cars going around, but they've told people to stay off the streets and, you know, not to be out there. They said it's dangerous because there could be another small earthquake, but just because they shouldn't get in the way. So there's maybe a few cars going by. I don't see any right now at all. But it is 3 in the morning, and usually this is more like New York City. You'll see a lot more cars 24 hours a day.
Vanessa, in terms of the damage in the area that you are in, can you assess it? Have many people died?
Well, my neighborhood particularly is quite safe, but just nearby, well, we had the Tec de Monterrey, which is a huge university. It's actually the university I went to. The buildings are connected through bridges, and all the bridges fell down. Apparently, there's about 40 people injured and 5 people already declared dead. Also, in the lake of Xochimilco, some people were saying that there was about 4 people that died there. And then you have the school you were mentioning earlier. So that's most of the damage here, you know, down south. If you go to the areas like Condesa, Roma, where Daniel is, it's much worse. I think Roma, and traditionally this happens with Roma and Condesa, they're the worst hit areas. In 1985, they were completely destroyed. And now most of my friends that live there, and I used to live there, they can't go back home because the structures are just, well, they can't be reliable.
And you mentioned the school, Vanessa, the school at which we still believe there are children trapped. Do you have any knowledge of what's happening there? What sort of a school it is?
Yeah, from what I can understand, it's a kindergarten, and up to 2 hours ago, they were saying that there was just 22 dead, but I think right now they found a pocket of 20 children that are okay. I can't confirm that, but I've been hearing on social media and on the telly that those are the rumors are coming up right now. But there's just nonstop footage about the school. They're trying to bring a lot of equipment. It's very difficult to get the kids out. And as Daniel was saying, the structures that fell are very old structures that have survived many earthquakes before.
So from what you're saying in that school, we're talking what, children who are 3, 4, 5 years old?
Yeah, mostly. Mostly up to 6 years old, I think.
All right. Well, Vanessa, that's a chilling note to end it on, but let's hope that that emergency and rescue operation gets to them as quickly as possible. Daniel and Vanessa, thank you both very much. Stay safe as well with the thought of aftershocks as well, but thank you very much for staying up for us and for joining us this morning.